Hey YouTube, Matt here with Motherboards.org. And as you can see, we're standing here in the living room because today we're going to talk about set-top boxes. Now I know what you're saying. What do you mean we're going to talk about set-top boxes? We're all about PCs here. And that's true. What I'm going to do is show you how to take a small form factor device, and in this case Intel's latest Haswell-based NUC, and turn it into the ultimate set-top companion that'll do things that no Roku or DVR or any single device can do. Let's get started. So the first part of the equation, and the main piece of this, will be Intel's NUC. Now, we've looked at the NUC several times before, and this one is one of the latest models that they have that just came out. Now, unlike the last NUC we looked at, which was i5 based, this is also the same, but this comes with a Haswell processor. So it's the 4th gen Intel Core. It also has the HD 5000 graphics, which is significantly better than the previous generation model, which means that this unit will be more adept to handle HD video and coding tasks if you're going to use it as a DVR, as well as maybe some light gaming, and we're going to test that out. So the reason why this unit is ideal compared to the last one is this one is USB 3 all the way around. On the back, you have Ethernet, you have mini HDMI, and you have a display port. So, but while that's interesting, the most beneficial reason why this is an ideal box to turn into a set-top box for a TV is because they built in an IR receiver right on the front. Now, to me, that just says, hook me up to a TV and control me by a remote. So what we're going to do now is take a look at everything else that we're going to need besides this in order to build a set-top box. Okay, now if you have the NUC, you have the first few things that we're going to need. You have the power supply, and you have the cord. Now that also is, I'm assuming here, if we're going to build a set-top box, you're going to buy the kit that comes with the chassis. But it's also important to point out that this is also available with just the board. And the board has the processor and all that other stuff on it. So if you just get the board, you could actually take that and build it directly into a display or any other kind of custom chassis that you want. So you don't have to have it as its own little box. Now, what we're also going to need to do is provide our own storage, wireless, which is optional, and memory. So for storage, chosen to use Intel's new 530 series SSD in an mSATA form factor. So this is basically the exact same SATA device that we looked at in our last video. The last video was the 2.5-inch desktop version. But this little guy basically has the exact same performance, which is 540 megs sequential read, 480 megs sequential write, 41,000 and 80,000 IOPS respectively. So it's a very, very high performance mSATA SSD. We're also going to need memory, and for that we're going to look towards Crucial for their DDR3 SODIMMs. Now I'm going to load this up with 8 gigs of DDR3 memory with the hopes that we're going to be able to do some light gaming duties with Steam because of the HD 5000 graphics that are in the Haswell processor. But if you are only building this for media purposes, so to like stream videos and stream Netflix and stuff from the internet and web browsing, you'll probably be fine with just 4 gigs of RAM instead of 8. But hey, RAM's cheap, you may as well load it up, right? The next internal component that you might want to have is wireless. Now it does come with Ethernet on the back, and if you have a hardwired connection, you'll just want to use that and you can skip the wireless. But if you do want to put wireless in there, there are lots of different options. In this case, I'm going to use an Intel, their latest wireless AC module. You can get a wireless N module, relatively inexpensive, so it's not a super expensive feature to add. But if you want to have it, you can just pick up one of these guys and that's all you need. Now, next component that you're going to need is a mini HDMI to full HDMI adapter to connect it to your TV. Yes, it does have DisplayPort, but most TVs don't have DisplayPort. So if you want to hook it up via HDMI, which is the only other choice, you'll need one of these guys. You'll also need some tools. And I have some tools here. Basically, you just need a Phillips screwdriver, a number 2 and a number 1, if you have it. Okay, to begin, I would recommend leaving the plastic film on while you put it together, or if you've already taken it off, you can either throw it away, you can get like a towel to put underneath this, because the top of this can get kind of scratched up, and we want to make sure it looks nice and pretty going forward. So, in order to open it up, you flip it over, and there are 4 screws on the bottom that you need to undo. So take a Phillips number 2 screwdriver. Should kind of come off like so. Set the top side, or the bottom aside for now, and then we have the unit here. So inside, you'll see the slots for the 2 sticks of RAM. The wireless card, if you choose to put wireless in here, goes here, and then the SSD goes above it. And the case already comes with a little thermal pad here for the SSD. So the first thing that we're going to install is the wireless card. Now, in order to do that, there's a screw that we have to take out right here. Now, don't lose it, because we're going to have to put it back in here to secure it down. So I'm going to set that right there. So you take your wireless module, and then using your screw, you just kind of push it down. And screw it down like that. And then the antenna leads for wireless are already built in. The SSD goes in basically the exact same way. There's a screw here, the taller screw up top, that you take off. And then you insert this here. And then press down, and then you take your screw, screw that down like so, and then your SSD is in. Okay, now the final part to this puzzle is the memory. The memory is very, very easy to put in. You kind of have it up at an angle there, push down, and it snaps in. Do the same thing for the top one. Insert. Make sure it's in all the way. Then push down. These little clips will hold it in, and then you know that it's complete. So that is everything that's internal that we need to do, so we can go ahead and put the lid back on and close it up. Now that we got all of the hardware components put into the NUC, the next thing we have to do is configure any settings in the UEFI, as well as load an operating system. So for the operating system, you have 2 choices that you can use. You can either go with Windows, Windows 8, Windows 7, any of them will be fine for this application. You could also use Linux. There are many distributions of Linux. And rather than get too much into them, if you're going to build a dedicated set-top box, the ones that you'll want to look at would probably be something like even XBMC's own distribution, which is a Linux distro integrated with XBMC, which is like a media software suite that we'll see in a few minutes. Because Linux is free, you're certainly welcome to give it a try before doing anything else if you want to learn something new or experiment. But for compatibility reasons and for most intents and purposes, you'll probably want to put some form of Windows on here. If you plan on using Windows Media Center, which is another media playback suite, it's also capable of easily doing recordings via like a DVR, you might actually want to see if you can find a license for Windows 7, only because it comes with Media Center, even the home premium version. Otherwise, you can certainly put on Windows 8, and Windows Media Center is just a little bit of an extra charge on top of that, but it's not horribly expensive. Okay, the first thing to do in setting it up is to check and see if there are any BIOS updates for your NUC. As of right now, there was a new version available, which if you are going to be installing Windows 8.1, you will likely want to grab this update. So to update the NUC, you can either press F7 on the keyboard or come up here to the little wrench icon and click Update BIOS. check the listing over here, you'll want to download the BIOS update file from Intel's website and load it onto a USB drive and plug that into the NUC while you boot it up, and then you'll be able to access and update that file here. So in this case, it's 0021, and we're going to select that and hit open. And it's going to ask if we want to do that. We're going to say yes, we do. And then it will think and do its thing and come back in just a second. Okay, when the BIOS update finishes, the system will reboot, and then we can go take one more trip back into the UEFI interface and see if there are any other options that we would need to change. Given that we're going to be using this as a set-top box, it's unlikely that there's going to be a whole lot of stuff that we need to modify. Well, you will want to make sure that the SATA chipset is on and the SATA mode is AHCI. One thing that you might want to do is, if you're going to be using this as a DVR, you might want it to power on in the event of a power failure by itself. That way, if the power goes out, it will try to come back up on its own. So I'm going to assume that most of you know how to install Windows, so why don't we do that now, and we'll check back when we get it up and running. Okay, now here we are at the Windows 8 desktop. Now, one of the first things that we're going to want to do is install some software. If you are running Windows 8 and you want to use Windows Media Center, you can go ahead and do that. You'll need to go to the Microsoft website and get a key in order to load it. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to go to XBMC.org, and what we're going to do is download the XBMC software. So go to Download, Windows, and Save. And that will download and save it to the device. Installing that's pretty straightforward, so we'll skip ahead here. Now that we have XBMC installed, you can click that, and then that will open up a new media managing tool called XBMC. And XBMC is a suite that allows you to stream videos, files, and other things from network shares and other places around the web. Once it's configured, it'll go out and it will find all of your files and search the internet to bring back, cover art and other information, so you can quickly scan through and watch movies. A Windows Media Center offers another type of interface to play and discover media. If you have a Windows network, it is a very easy piece of software to use. One of the major reasons to use Windows Media Center is for recording television. If you had a TV tuner to the NUC or to your network via something like an HD home run, you can record from a terrestrial antenna. If you get a network tuner that is cable card compatible, you can even set it up so that way it can record premium channels from a cable service. And it lets you watch live TV. So I've set up this instance with a terrestrial TV tuner, so that way we can browse and watch television. And of course we can record them and other things like that too. And of course, you get a TV guide. Now there's no reason why, if you're using a Windows box, you can't use the two together. I found that Windows Media Center is very good for certain things and maybe not so good for other things, like, for example, if you want to play MKV files. You can add some stuff to Windows Media Center to do that, but XBMC supports a much broader file format set out of the box. And it's just easier to use that. Okay, now that we're all set up and running, the next thing we have to do is set it up so we can control it on the couch without using a keyboard and a mouse, because this isn't a very fun thing to stretch over to the couch. Although you can, if you get a wireless one, it will work. But there's better ways to do it. Now, the first and probably easiest way, especially with this model of the Intel NUC, is to use a Media Center remote control, which will work for XBMC or Windows Media Center and lots of other media apps as well. So one thing that's really nice is once you install the driver package from Intel, which includes the driver for the IR receiver, your remote, once you get a Media Center compatible remote control, your remote control is ready to go. Just aim it at the NUC, press up and down, you can go back and forth. Anything and everything you want to do can be done right from here. Very cool and very simple. Okay, the next method of control is something like this, which is a pocket-sized hard keyboard with a trackpad built in, which is really, really nice if you want to have mouse control instead of just a hard button remote. Really, if you're only using it as a set-top box for media, you'll probably not need something like this, and you'll be able to get away with a remote control just fine. But the advantages here, again, are that you can use the mouse cursor, and if you're doing like searching for text or searching for a movie or something in a list, this makes it a little bit easier to input that rather than using a number pad. So this particular one is the Fabi, and it's relatively inexpensive, and it works over Bluetooth. So the NUC doesn't come with Bluetooth built in. The wireless card that I happen to put in here does support Bluetooth 4, but if you have one that doesn't support Bluetooth, or you didn't get a card that does, you can get a little Bluetooth add-on module from Newegg or Amazon, and they're really, really inexpensive. It doesn't have to be super fancy. The use case for this is very light. So don't go nuts. Most likely the easiest way you'll find to get full keyboard and mouse control is to use a smartphone or an iPod Touch or a tablet or an Android phone or whatever in order to, which will allow you to control the mouse and keyboard and many other functions using that device. If you're on iOS or Android or any of them, there is no shortage of applications that will do this, and they all work about the same way. There's an app that you download to your device, and then there's usually a companion piece of software that you'll download and install on the computer, and then that will let you connect to the computer over your network, assuming they're both on the same network, allow you connect to it and control that. Now in this case, I'm going to be using Windows Phone 8 and an application called PC Remote. It's also available for Windows Phone 7 as well. This application has customized controls for a lot of different functions. So for example, I can hit the mouse. Let's see if I can do this so you can see me here. You see how when I move my thumb, the mouse cursor moves. And if I tap, it goes up and down in the list. And it supports a whole bunch of different kinds of gestures too. You can read the documentation. And all of these apps work in a very, very similar way. This particular application also gives me access to the keyboard, so I can type. And it even has some customized applications built in for things like XBMC, VLC, the now defunct Zune software, and Windows Media Center. So if I tap Windows Media Center, it can come up with ways to bring up the TV guide, for example. Tap that, and the guide comes up. So lots of cool options here to navigate without any necessary hardware other than a smartphone, which you probably already have, or a tablet, and a network, which this thing will be online. So there you go. Real simple, real easy. Okay, now the last thing that we're going to do is take a look at the gaming performance using the Intel NUC with Haswell processor. Now, the Haswell processor ships with the HD 5000 graphics core, at least the model that's in this one does. So it's one of the better integrated graphics cores that Intel's ever put out. It's way more powerful than the 3000 and the 4000 in previous generations. That said, it's still an integrated graphics processor, so we're not going to be able to do things like run Crysis 3 at 2K with all of the whiz-bang features turned on. So we're going to have to scale it back a little bit. But when you're talking about playing on a television from your sofa, running a game at 1366 by 768 as opposed to 1080p isn't that big of a deal, and that's really going to be just on the stronger titles. If you're talking about some more of like the casual games and indie games that you can get, it'll run those kinds of games day in and day out all day long. In this case, we're going to be taking a look at Alan Wake's American Nightmare, which is going to be set to 1366 by 768. And it's a game that's 2 years old, so it's going to give us a really good feel on how gaming performance is going to go with this. Now I also have a controller here that we're going to play it with to get the feel of the game with a controller. So let's zoom in and take a look and see how it runs. So we'll have him take off and run here. And the frame rate looks pretty smooth, and I forgot to invert my sticks. So as you can see, the gaming performance is pretty good. Again, it's not going to compare to the likes of an Xbox One or a PlayStation 3 or even an Xbox 360 in terms of raw gaming performance. But it's something that you can wrap up and you can connect to your Steam library and just go to town. And these guys are going to kill me now. Oh no! All right, well, I'd like to thank you for joining me while we take a look at how to turn a NUC into a set-top media player capable of playing back audio and video files from a network share or from a local connected drive, even some light gaming and everything in between. So I hope you got a little bit out of it. Remember, the NUC itself is a very versatile small form factor PC. This is only one application that you can do with it, but again, you can slap this thing on the back of any monitor to turn it into kind of an all-in-one PC. You can use it as a set-top box. You can use it in digital signage. There's lots of commercial applications. You can buy just the board, and you can build it into your own customized chassis to build your own kind of custom computing device. The sky is the limit. Finally, we do have a giveaway that we're doing with this video. So if you want to have a chance to win one of several i5 Haswell-based NUCs that you saw here today, hit the video description on YouTube and you'll find a link there with instructions on how you can enter. So that is sponsored by Intel. So I'd like to thank Intel for donating several units for us to give away to our viewers. On behalf of everyone here at the Channel Pro Network and Motherboards.org, I thank you for watching.